Hi, this is Tyler with Aftertouch Audio. Let's learn how to do this. What's going on, sound designers? Pitch manipulation is an extremely powerful tool in a sound designer's arsenal and can turn things like birds into bats and this thing into a mouse. If you're new to sound design, you might have tried messing around with pitch shifting or this knob here and have come across this problem. Ew, gross. Okay, if we're going to learn how to design slow motion sound effects, we first need to know the types of files we need to work with and their limitations. Sounds are captured with two adjustable parameters that affect the quality of the recording. The sample rate, which is the number of samples taken per second, and bit rate, which determines the number of possible amplitude values that we can record for each sample. The minimum acceptable sample rate for pro level audio work is 44.1 kilohertz, but we can go all the way up to 384,000 kilohertz. Personally, I recommend working with files that are 48 kilohertz or higher. Most prosumer and all pro gear can achieve this sample rate. But what do these numbers mean, Mason?
You'll see figures like 96 and 192 kilohertz thrown around. But do we need these? 192 kilohertz is marketing fluff, really, and it's a number that we just don't need to worry about.
Wrong. Let me quickly play you a sample at 384,000 kilohertz and then play the same recording at 48 kilohertz and you will hear the difference. There, yeah, wait, I didn't really. So is it just marketing fluff?
No, the answer is no. Toodaloo!
Sampling something at 192,000 kilohertz and 24-bit means you can slow the sample down considerably on top of having an enormous amount of headroom to apply a number of effects that you would like. We have a lot of options for sample rates, with the pro level starting at 44,100 kilohertz and going all the way up to 384,000 kilohertz at the time of recording of this video. As you might have guessed by now, the higher the sample rate that you choose, the slower you can play back the sample while still maintaining its fidelity. Let me quickly play you some examples of sounds recorded at 5 different sample rates, and I'll slow them down to their optimal pitch before you lose the fidelity, and then I'll slow the sample down to 90% so that you can hear the absolute destruction. Keep an eye on the EQ to see how much high end we lose for each of these sample rates. Yeah, just as a general rule of thumb, if I'm out sampling things with my rig, I usually go as high as I can for both bit rate and sample rate, as it greatly increases the flexibility I have in post-production. Not to mention that storage for audio is dirt cheap. Now for bit rate. For any type of recording that I do, I always set my bit rate as high as it can go. Unless I'm capturing location sound for dialogue, then I set my recorder to 24 bits. Here are examples of current bit rates, the amount of volume stages, and the dynamic ranges. For most applications, 24 bits is more than enough, but anytime I have a recorder that can sample 32 bits, I always go 32 bits, as more information is always better. Okay, now that we have all the techie stuff out of the way, let's move on to the 3 slow motion sound design elements that you can easily create from your home. To create subdowns, I usually start with a simple synth like Serum, load up a sine wave, and then I add some harmonics. Fun fact, I actually learned this trick from old Game Boy games like Pokemon. They use triangle waves instead of sine waves for basses. But why, you might ask? Take the simple sine wave here. Some smaller speakers will have problems recreating this sine wave, and it will either be very weak or you'll have a non-existent bass. But if you replace it with this triangle wave, you get all of these upper harmonics. And while some speakers might not be able to play the lower frequency here, your brain will hear all these higher frequencies and recreate the fundamental. This is called phantom frequencies. Isn't your brain amazing? I take the best of both worlds by adding some harmonics to a simple sine wave. Here are 3 played back to back. Once you have the wave you like selected, it's then time to apply an LFO to the master pitch. In Serum, you need to go to the matrix section, select LFO 1, and then select Global and Master Tune. Set the direction to go down and set the value to somewhere where you're happy with. In the LFO section itself, set it to trigger, and then for the bare bone basics, just set it to go down. I personally like to have an attack on my pitch down, so I spike up the initial attack. You should now have a very basic sub-down sound. Try rendering this out and apply a lot of effects to it. Just remember to keep the sub-frequencies clean. Here are a few examples of some sounds you can create with this simple patch and some creativity. The next element I want to touch on is one of the biggest movement elements in slow motion sound design. Whooshes come in all different shapes and sizes, and every single sound designer does them differently. These are some of my personal favorite designs. The basic idea behind designing any kind of whoosh is to duplicate, reverse, fade in, fade out, crossfade, reverb, and then add some flair. Remember to slow down your source sample to get that slowed down low frequency effect. The last thing I want to show you before getting into the sound design is designing a cinematic low impact sound. These effects are crucial in helping enhance any impacts in your slow motion sound design. These effects can be quite difficult to create, but it can also be easy depending on your choice of source material. There are lots of ways to do this, but one really easy way to do this is to start by lowering the pitch of a powerful impact sound until you're happy. This should go without saying that the higher the sample rate, the better the quality in the pitch shifting sample will be. Running it through an ass load of reverb and then cut out some of the high frequencies. Then layer it up. Sweet, now let's get into the nitty gritty. I started off with redesigning the trigger sound. I then moved to the in and out parts of the sound. This included the initial gunshot and the echo once we left the slow motion sounds. I'm a huge fan of this approach as I picked up this trick from the Sniper Ghost Warrior trailer redesign I did. This gunshot included a bass drum slowed down, a second bass drum not pitched, a Hotchkiss gun, this old guy right here, firing a 42mm round as it sounds reasonably close to a tank firing, and an M82A1 rifle. If you want a more detailed tutorial on how to create modern sounding gunshots, click the card in the top right. From there, I added some sub-downs. This helped let the listener know exactly when the slowdown effect is actually happening. Then I moved on to the whooshes and I split them up into 3 layers. Low, high, and bullet rings. I really focused on the movement of the camera and the angle of the bullet. Anytime something moved, I wanted it highlighted. I'm also not a huge fan of making everything low pitched in a slow motion sound design. Sometimes having some higher frequency stuff in there can really help make it stand out. I then finished off with the tree exploding. All together we get this. The following presets can be found in the description below. If you liked the video, please consider giving it a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more content. If you have any questions or just want to say hey, please do so in the comment section below, as it really helps boost the engagement. I try to reply to every comment you guys leave. Thank you so much for watching, now go make some noise.